All right, so we left off here describing factors that increase birth rates or decrease birth rates, that influence. Then we talked about the fact that death rates are significantly declining over history, and that has led to exponential growth of the population. Main reasons: increase in life expectancy and decrease in infant mortality rates. And the main contributors to that is all of these things. The fact that we have food, nutritious food, so people are living healthier lives. We take showers, brush our teeth, and the technology that had led to vaccines and antibiotics. All right, these are survivorship curves. You should be able to answer this by looking at the graphs, people, right? So type 1, which references humans, or is it humans are a good example of this. We have a tendency to live to adulthood, but once we get to that phase or a certain age in our life, the population declines or can no longer survive. I should say, not declines, can no longer survive. Let's use the right words. Type 2, there's really no clear explanation because it just depends on the organism, really. There's not much to explain. It's that weird line. But type 3, backwards from us, in the early stages of life, they have little chance of survival. But once they reach maturity, if they reach maturity, then their chance of living a long, long life increases. All right, so factors that influence migration. And by migration, I mean IMI or EMI, okay? Because coming in or coming out. Who can give me some answers?
Religious freedom?
Definitely. So a lot of people disagree with their country's religious beliefs and seek refuge for that reason. War, definitely a factor, right?
Cost of living.
Cost of living, money, economy, all of that. Political, for sure. This is environmental refuge. I never get that, but it happens. Like the whole, a big movement. And today I got this answer, which really definitely needs to become part of my slides because it's the truth, right? Natural disasters or some kind of serious environmental change will cause the movement, like what happened in Puerto Rico just recently, right? Because you just can't stay there. So age structure diagrams. I know you've seen these before in bio. You might not remember them, but the most important thing is that you understand what these diagrams represent. These diagrams represent a distribution of the population at different ages, or it's structured by age, male and female, okay? If the population, and there's 3 groups, red, yellow, blue, and it's obviously not going to be colored. The bottom of the diagram is pre-reproductive. The middle is reproductive, and the top is post. Which part of those do you think, when it's a large group of individuals, will cause exponential growth of the population, or rapid growth, or significant growth? People always say the middle, but anything between the middle and the bottom, because if you have a large population of pre-reproductive, which is ages 0 to 14, by the way, because, oh yeah, it says it right there. I thought the video was cutting it. They're going to eventually become reproductive, plus the population that's in reproductive. So you have 2 movements of growth, yes? Because remember, long lifespan. All right, so this particular group, high population in the pre-reproductive, high in the reproductive, low in the post-reproductive, kind of signifies that they don't have long lifespans, but there's a lot of births still happening, right? Within that population. That's not what this diagram is saying. This diagram is predicting growth. What do you think is going to happen to the population? It's going to grow. It's going to grow fast because you have a high percent of population about to have babies or having babies. Yes? It doesn't matter that they're dying young. They're still high, right? And we don't really know that. We just know there's not a big population here, which signifies. What do you think is going to happen with these? Which, by the way, this is kind of less developed countries still. This is starting more developed countries. United States is an example, and then continuing that. What's going to happen to this group? Slow. What about the next one? Some people call it stable. It's really called 0, but yes, I would actually put /stable in between both of these, because I wouldn't say zero growth is stable. Slow growth is more stable than zero growth because zero growth doesn't show any stability. It shows nothing. But yes, if you look at a curve and there's zero growth, it does look like stable growth. So put that word in between here if you want to draw arrows to both. And what's this one? Negative. Literally negative, which would be declining growth. Good job. Who can explain why this area is experiencing negative growth? Don't give me answers. Use the age structure diagram to describe why this area is experiencing negative growth.
There are a lot of older people who aren't reproducing, and these older people didn't produce many children, so they won't have reproduction for the children.
So there's a lot, the majority of the population is in the post-reproductive ages, which means they're not having children, and eventually they're also going to die off. So the population will decline or reach negative growth. There's your answer, okay? You do have to do that on the test, by the way. All right. This is the end of the notes. We end with the demographic transition model, which is another way to predict growth. But what they're using is past patterns of birth rates and death rates to calculate population growth. So if you notice, this line is birth. I put the little baby for you. This line is death. This is population. On the test, those symbols will not be there. So you just see lines, and you're going to know which line is which because we're going to describe what's happening. This whole model is a view of the pre-industrial or the transition to the industrial period, and then past the industrial period, which is where we are now. This is important to note. Stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 is past factual information. Stage 4, stage 5 is whatever is provided to you on the graph you utilize to interpret the answers. I'm going to repeat that. These answers are based on facts that have already happened throughout history. Post is the future. The future could be stage 4, the future could be stage 5, whatever it is, you have to look at the line provided to you and use that line to answer the questions. So in this case, we're going to analyze stage 3, 4, and 5 tomorrow, but we're just going to look at 1 and 2 today. Remember, it's birth rates, death rates, and we're using those patterns to calculate what the future could be like, okay? So stage 1, which is called pre-industrial. Tell me about the birth rate patterns, death rate patterns, and population pattern.
The birth rate pattern is stable?
Nope. So I'm going to go back here where you could see the actual graph. This is population. What does that say? Death rate per 1,000. So this is the crude birth rate, crude death rate. All right, this is over time. So how are birth rates?
Birth rates are high.
High, thank you. How are death rates? High. How's my population? Growth.
Low.
I wouldn't say low. Huh?
It's growing.
Steady. Good. It's really steady with maybe, because if I really want to interpret this transition, there's a slight growth there, right? Towards the end. Cyclical, good answer. If I circled this and I said, what pattern of population, what pattern does the birth rate show? Cyclic. What pattern does the death rate show? Cyclic, yes? Because it's up and down, up and down. All right? Pre-industrial. References, this is what I'm going to bring in the unit that we kind of didn't talk about. Hunter-gatherers or nomads, right? Why was their birth rates high? Why was their death rates high? Not necessarily they never knew.
They didn't know how to, or like as we know now.
They didn't have things that we had, which caused high infant mortality rates. You might want to write that down. Explanations. High or low lifespans. Because they moved from place to place. They never settled, right? And then we reach this stage, which I put in green for a specific reason. Yes? What happens now? What happens to birth rates? They're still high. What about death rates?
Decreasing.
Declining, which means you got a high birth rate, you have less people dying, so what's going to happen to the population? How grow? What kind of growth is this? Exponential. Good job. It's the start of exponential growth. Always a question on the AP exam. During which stage in the demographic transition model does exponential growth begin? And it's in the transitional stage. What society do you think fits under this phase? Or what happened? What happened to lead to decline in death rates? We settled. Good job. And when you settled, you did what? We farmed. Farmed. Better sanitation. I wouldn't say medicine just yet. It's about to happen. But the fact that we settled, we grew our food, we took a shower, we had running water, this led to a decline in death rates. We're still having a lot of kids, so the population grew. All right, I'm stopping.